Hello and welcome back to J.P.'s World of Wrestling. I am your man J.P. Today we talk about WrestleMania 3, the biggest WrestleMania of all time. Now some could argue, oh no, Rock and Austin was bigger. No, don't make me laugh. There's no way Rock versus Austin will ever be as big as Hogan versus Andre. Not even by a long shot. I mean, it just doesn't even compare. So there was a lot of buildup for this event. Because it was such a big event, they needed a big venue. Up until that point, they had just been in regular sized arenas, but they needed like a big football stadium. So they went with the Pontiac Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan, near Detroit. And the day was March 29th, 1987. And the buildup was Hulk Hogan had been the champion for a while, and one of his best friends, Andre the Giant, had challenged him to a championship match on Piper's Pit. And, he had come on with Bobby Heenan. He had announced that he was being managed by Bobby Heenan. And so he challenged Hulk Hogan to a match. So Hulk Hogan was reluctant at first, but then he just decided, well, if he wants his title shot, I'll give it to him. Mostly because Andre pulled the shirt and the cross right off of his neck and threw it on the ground. So Hulk Hogan agreed to wrestle Andre. Now, I believe that WrestleManias 3, 4, and 5, all three correlate with each other because right after WrestleMania 3, they start going into things that would set up for WrestleMania 4. Then, of course, WrestleMania 4 was the setup for WrestleMania 5 a year later. So, but WrestleMania 3, it was such a huge event. I mean, all the matches were pretty good. They had an Intercontinental title match, which is considered to be one of the greatest matches of all time, which I guess you could make that argument. I didn't care for it as much as the main event, but, it was still a memorable match. Macho Man Randy Savage against Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Of course, Macho Man wrestled George the Animal Steele the year before. So this year, George the Animal Steele was in the corner of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and he played a factor in that match in allowing Ricky the Dragon Steamboat to get the pinfall and win the title. And that feud started when Macho Man came down with the ring bell across the throat of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, putting him out of action for quite a while. But then Ricky Steamboat came back better than ever, ready to seek vengeance on the Macho Man for putting him out of action. So there was also an interesting mixed tag match where Hillbilly Jim and two Little People partners taking on King Kong Bundy and two Little People partners. It's really sad if you think about it for King Kong Bundy. Just the year before, he was in the big main event facing Hogan, and now he's in a mixed tag team match against Hillbilly Jim. I don't know what happened there, but nevertheless, it was still an interesting match. Hillbilly Jim prevailed because King Kong Bundy body slammed and elbow dropped one of the little guys, so he was immediately disqualified. You can't do that. So, and then, there was the tag team titles weren't on the line, but the tag champions did wrestle. It was the Hart Foundation and Dangerous Danny Davis, that treacherous heel referee that screwed the British Bulldogs out of their title, against the British Bulldogs and Tito Santana. So the Hart Foundation prevailed after knocking one of them out, after knocking one of the Bulldogs out with a Jimmy Hart's megaphone. Then they picked up Danny Davis to make the cover. I think it was Tito Santana that they covered, but they knocked Tito out with a megaphone. And then Dangerous Danny Davis made the cover, humiliating Tito Santana. What a terrible, treacherous thing to do. Why, okay. But, no, this thing was huge. It was a big event. And you know. And R&B singer Aretha Franklin ended up singing America the Beautiful to start things off. And then, there was all kinds of matches. Jake the Snake Roberts against the Honky Tonk Man. Honky Tonk Man, of course, had Jimmy Hart in his corner, but Jake the Snake Roberts had Alice Cooper, heavy metal singer Alice Cooper in his corner. And Honky Tonk Man was able to cheat his way to victory, but Jake the Snake Roberts got the last laugh as they got a hold of Jimmy Hart afterwards, put the snake on him, and he ran away scared. But then that brings us to the big main event, an event so huge, so big, that, like I said, they needed a big venue to hold it in, the Pontiac Silverdome. The Silverdome is no longer there. It's now an Amazon distribution center, which is sad in a way, but, that's the way it goes. The Detroit Lions are playing at a different venue now, so that arena, that venue sat just abandoned and rotting for a long time. So they finally just tore it down, built an Amazon over it, but, that's the way things go. But the event itself was just, it's still to this day one of my favorite events. So much so that I actually have a DVD copy. This is the championship edition, and this is a very cool DVD. I like it, and it's got a lot of special features on here. And this event also featured a farewell match for Roddy Piper as he took on Adrian Adonis. So Adrian Adonis had attacked Roddy Piper, and Roddy Piper essentially then returned the favor by attacking Adrian Adonis on the set of the Flower Shop. And I never saw a guy that he looked legitimately like really angry, like he took a baseball bat and he broke the bat and he's like, ah, ah. And then he looks in the corner and says, "The war has just begun." And so, but Piper kind of wanted to take a step back from the wrestling world, and so he said that this was going to be his retirement match. And he did go away for a while, but then he came back. That was always kind of Piper's thing, is he'd go away when he was just done with it. He would go away until he wanted more. Then he came back for a while. Then he left again. So, he kept coming and going. But that was okay because the fans were always happy to see Piper. They were always happy to see him back. And you knew when Piper came back, he was going to stir the pot a little bit. But anyway, yeah, WrestleMania 3. I remember when I first heard about WrestleMania 3. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. I was actually at my grandma's house. This was back when my family lived just around the corner from my grandma's. And I was at her house, and I was watching something on TV with my cousins. And my cousin, who actually, he didn't really get me into wrestling, but he kind of heightened my taste for wrestling because he was into it too. So we were over there watching something, and then he started talking about WrestleMania 3, and I'm like, what? What's WrestleMania 3? He's like, oh, Hulk Hogan's going to wrestle Andre the Giant. And I'm like, what? Because although I was watching wrestling, I wasn't watching it week to week like I later did. But I'm like, oh my goodness, how in the world am I going? How do we watch this? He's like, well, you can only, it's on pay-per-view, cable, or you can go to closed circuit. I'm like, no chance of that happening. But later on, I heard about it. Later on, I actually got to see the pay-per-view on video, and I loved it. To this day, it's still one of my favorite all-time wrestling pay-per-views to watch because it just, the size and scope of it, it was just, man, it was awesome. Every time I know that I'm going to watch WrestleMania 3, I get excited because, yes, these are some memories here. This is like my peak fandom. This is like the year before is kind of when I started getting into wrestling, but this is where I was a full-fledged wrestling fan as a kid. And oh, the memories. Very, very exciting memories. So that was WrestleMania 3. I know that some of you have different aspects or whatever, but what are some of your memories of WrestleMania 3? Leave them in the comments below, and that will do it for this video. So if you're new here, go ahead and like the video. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of fun stuff happening here, and I will see you next time.